per request, I'm making a video on using Excel for personal finance or for engineering economics or for whatever. And to start off with, I'm just going to press Control Home, and that takes me to A1. So A1 at the top. You can also, and so just quickly, the way you can move around is press the control arrow and right, and it jumps to the next cell over. Control arrow left goes back to the next cell. So you can see I can move around easily and quickly. I can move down. This whole time I'm just holding the control key and then selecting left, right, down, up, down, left. If I wanted to, I could hold Control Shift and then move down, and it goes to up, down, up, down. If I wanted to let go of the control key, I can hold the Shift key and select cell. Now press Control D, and nice. It copies everything above it down. Now, this $1.50, I can change that to just a standard numeric, a general number, by pressing Control Shift and the number 1. I can change it to a time by pressing Control Shift 2, a date, Control Shift 3, and back to money, Control Shift 4. Now, when it comes to money, right, here's a date. I can shift that date. That's the number in Excel that represents this date. And I'm hitting Control Shift 1, Control Shift 3 to format these back and forth, back and forth. Now, if we had, let's say, some money. So we're looking here at money. All right, so I'm going to do Control Shift 3. That's $10,000. Now I'm going to select everything using the mouse. Actually, I'll do it just using the keyboard only. So I'm going to do Control Shift, and then the right arrow takes me to the end of the. Now I'm going to do Control Shift down, takes me to the next one. Then Control Shift down will take me all the way down. Now those last ones are life in years, so I'm only going to format all of these into dollars. Now, I like the way it looked before. The way it looked before was done using a macro that I had written. Macro is just a little program that runs in the background of Microsoft Excel or Microsoft whatever. And I'm going to change those. So I did Control Shift number 4 there. So this is the standard currency. You can see it right here. Of course, I can change it here too, but I'm showing how to do it with the keyboard, so it's much faster. So that's the standard currency format in Excel. Maybe I don't want that. So if I don't want that, quickly I'm going to go here. And what I'm going to do is modify things. So when it comes to customizing things, you're going to notice that the drawing in here, the standard toolbar, right? If I were to look here, home, insert, page layout, formulas, whatever, is not available in the ribbon. So I want the drawing tools, so I'm going to select that. I want the developer tools, so I'm going to select that. Now when I say OK, now I have the developer button and I have the drawing, right? So I can draw all over it if I want to. Now, going back to the macros. The macros are written in Visual Basic. So you can either press Alt F11, as it says there, right? So I'm gonna hit Alt and F11, and this takes me into this backplane where I can write code if I want to that runs through Excel. Or, you know, in this ribbon, you can just click it, and here it is. So if I were to write something, right, I could select in here and then insert and then user forms. You can create forms and stuff, or a module. So I can insert a module. Now, if I insert a module here, then any program that I write is going to be available only to this book. Once I close this one and I start a different Excel file, the macros that I wrote aren't going to be available to it, and that are to me. That's pretty annoying. So I'm not going to do that. What I'm going to do is save it to my personal. The easiest way to get your personal up is just click record a macro, do whatever. You don't even have to name it. Just note that when it says store macro in, I'm going to choose personal macro workbook. When you write a piece of code or whatever, macro in your personal macro workbook, it'll be available to any Excel file that you open on your computer, on this computer specifically, right? So I'm just going to mess around doing whatever and then say stop recording. There we go. Now when I go back, now my personal macro book is viewable. Here's that module that I was doing, which isn't going to make any sense. I just selected a cell and then quit. So this module is essentially worthless. But what it did for me is it allowed me to easily get into my personal macro book, right? So now I'm going to insert module. Actually, that's not what I'm going to do. I'm going to import a file. And so I've written these and I'll make them available to you, right? So that you can use them if you want. So here's a bunch of macros. And one of them is I call format cur KM, but this is just a macro that formats whatever cell I select into a format that shows thousands as K and millions as M. And I'll show you what I mean momentarily. So there's different ones that I use. I'm going to close that. Now, if I go to macros, all of those ones that I've written are here. For instance, I have this first one up, this clear filtered. So if I'm in a big table and I have filtered out a table and I can't remember which columns I've filtered, I just hit that one and it clears all the filters and I don't have to worry about it. This one's divide by value. So you can go into here and select it, right? Like Control-Shift-D is already selected for me because that's the way I like it, but I could change it. So then when I copy a number, so let's say I want to divide 15,000 by 12,000, which is 67 divided by E67. I can just select the 12,000, copy it, and then hit Control-Shift-D, and it'll divide 15,000 by 12 by the value only. The formats won't be affected. Here is one. That's the format currency KM that I showed you in the back plane, and it's Control-Shift-K. Right, so you can set it up. You'll have to set it up for whatever you want. Since this is my Excel and I put the macros together, it has the keys that I like. So let's select these from before, right? This is the standard currency from Excel. Now I hit Control-Shift-K and boom, it formats it like I like to see it, right? So instead of the 10,000.00, it just says 10K. Excel won't do that for you unless you use a macro like mine or write your own. Do whatever you want. Obviously, this is 4 years, right? But I could make it into $4 by using my Control-Shift-K, which is my macro, or I can use the Excel one. But since this is years, it's supposed to be just a numeric. And that's how if you watch my class or some of my videos, that's how I switch so quickly between currency values or format them in different ways. Control-Shift-K, right? And then I format it. As I was saying before, like let's say this one is just a general numeric, right? There's no dollar sign. This is just a general numeric. You see here a number, it's just a number. Now I'm going to divide this by this, right? So I'm going to divide 3,400 by 10,000. Right, so I can do Control-Shift-D and boom. And the reason I did Control-Shift-D is it doesn't carry over the format of this number. This number was in dollars, and what I did is just divided by a value. Now, one thing you should notice, if you use my macro to do something like divide this out, there's no going back. So I divided this out, and if I do Control-Z, I can do Control-Z-LZ, it's not going back to 3418, right? It was supposed to be 3418. Will be negative 3418. Yeah. So use it at your discretion, but it does make formatting easy. Like if I'm just going to change the format, then there's no harm done. If I'm going to divide and multiply and whatever, then you might screw yourself over. So that's how I managed to change all these, right? That's $500,000. So we could view it like this. When we do, oftentimes, if you have a column that's too short, it'll come out as pound signs, right? And then you can't figure out what that is. That's when formatting like this is really handy. Control-Shift-K, boom, formats the number for me. I don't even know what this is. That's $140,000 per year, right? And the same goes with percentages, right? I could change this to a number. So there it is as a number. Now I'm going to do Control-Shift and the number 5. Right? This is not a macro. This is standard in Excel, and it changes it to 5%. Since it's truncated the decimal places, right, I can spread them out to see it's actually 4.5. This one here is a percentage, so I can change it 19%. Right? On that one, you can Control Z out of it because it's just a format. And that's it. Hopefully this is helpful. If you want to take a look at the macros that are available, then go for it. This should get you there and allow you to move around. So now you know Control-Shift brings things up, Control-D brings the paste job down. You can do the same thing. Let's say I want it to say nice all the way over to here, right? So then I'm going to just do Control-R and it pastes them over. Nice, 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 nice. Hopefully you thought that was nice. Hopefully you can move around now quickly. You can take a number, shift it into whatever you want. And that helps not only with the speed of things, but it helps with things looking good to you. Now that you've got that down and I've got a wardrobe change, thankfully for you, not a wardrobe malfunction, then we'll look at how to calculate a few things quickly. Let's say we want to know, I don't know, a loan amount, right? So let's say we borrow $50,000, right? And of course now you can format that easily, 50K. So we borrow 50 grand. We're supposed to pay it back in 5 years. And our interest rate, right, is 4%, right, per year. Let's say that's per year compounded monthly, make it easy. Then the question would be, what's your payment? Right, this is equivalent to saying what's AW, and let's say payment per month. Right, so this is equivalent to finding an annuity or an annual worth, right? But we're not talking about annual. We're talking about an annuity that is monthly, right? So we would come over here. First thing is, since this is per year, we need one that is per month, right? So we said it was compounded monthly just to make things easy. So that's divided by 12, obviously. This is not in the format of percentage, so I'm going to do Control-Shift-5, and now it is in percentage, right? How am I going to find this? Well, I'm going to find this using the PMT command. So how would we find it using, let's say, finance or engineering economics syntax? Well, I would find it by saying 50 grand. I'm looking for a given present amount, right, that I'm borrowing at I at N, right, the number of periods. So the interest rate, the number of periods. In Excel speak, that's not going to work, right? So in Excel speak, I'm going to do PMT, and I think what comes first might be I, and then N, and then the present value. Something like that. We'll check right now when I put in equals PMT, and hopefully you can see it there, but it says rate in per, so the interest rate, the number of periods relative to that rate, then present value or future value. So for us, the rate is here, right? Now, since we're finding this per month, this is 5 years. I need that times 12. You mathematicians tell me that's 60 months. And then what? Then we have, because of the way that the equation is structured in Excel, you're going to get a negative answer. So, and there's an explanation for that I'll skip for this video. But suffice it to say, you're going to put that in. And since we're borrowing this amount, let's just say that it's negative, right? Then we're going to get that. Well, that's how much we would have to pay per month at 12% per year in order to pay off this 50K. So if you were borrowing or to buy a vehicle at $50,000 for a 5-year loan at 12%, you'd know that's your monthly payment. Let's say it's 5%, then that's your monthly payment. 2%, 0%. And of course, at 0, we can verify that that answer is correct easily by just saying it's 50K divided by 5 years times 12, right? 12 months per year. And what do you know? We get the same answer. And there it is. So that's how you would find annual. Let's say we want to know the future worth of something. Let's say we want to know the future worth of what? We want to know the future worth of $833 per month paid for 5 years. See what I'm saying? So now we're just going to take this information here and we're going to calculate the future worth. By the way, I can do, if you don't know, if you've done something and you want to redo it over and over again, Control Y. Control Y will do whatever you did last. Control Z undoes whatever you just did. So we're going to find the future worth of this. So in engineering, econ, or finance speak, right? Then what would it be? It would be future worth. So we're talking about 833.33. I'm looking for F given A. In this case, A is not annual, it's monthly annuity, right? I in. But in Excel speak, we're going to look for the future value. It's going to be the rate, then it's going to be the number of periods, and then it's going to be the present value, which we don't want, so we're going to skip that. And then it's going to be the payment amount, so then we'll put in the payment amount. Let's see if I got that right by putting in here FV. Hopefully there you can see rate, N per number of periods. Actually, payment comes next, and then present worth. So if we were to go back to here, I don't need that extra comma because we are dealing with the payment. So rate is 0. We'll have to change that. So rate is 0. Again, we're dealing with 5 times 12 because we're talking about months. The payment amount is here. Hit enter, and well, you know, it's 50K. Of course it's 50K because it's 0%. Let's put in our 12% that we had before. Right now we're dealing with payments of 11, 12, 22 per month. So this is the future value of $1,112 paid every month for 5 years. Let's say we wanted the future worth in a different way. So I'll put future worth 2 equals what? Well, the thing I can do now is future worth. Here's our rate, 5 times 12, right? 60 periods from now. Except this time I'm not going to use the payment amount. I'm going to use the borrowed amount, right? So I'm going to use the borrowed amount of 50K. See that? So now I'm going to calculate the future worth of $50,000 5 years from now at 1% per month. And you shouldn't be surprised that we got the same answer that we got before, right? Because before we calculated the future worth of this payment, which is equivalent to this present worth that we're borrowing. Now I calculated the future worth of this present worth. So we got the same answer, not a surprise, right? The other thing I could do is, let's say, what's present worth? Of course, we know what answer we're going to get, but the point is that now what am I going to look for? In our speak, I'm looking for, what is this, 90? So 90.8K, more or less, right? I'm looking for present given future at I in. But when it comes to Excel speak, I'm looking for a present value, and it's going to be I in, and then I think it's going to be the payment, which I don't want. So I'm going to skip that, and then I'm going to put the future word, right? The future value here. Let's see if I'm right this time. So it's rate, number of periods, it is payment. So that's why there's that extra comma in there, because we're skipping the payment because we want to calculate future worth. So here's my rate. Here's my number of periods times 12, because we're talking months. We're skipping the payment amount because we're dealing with a future worth. Enter, and what do you know? 50 grand. Same thing we got before, of course. So format it the way I like it, right? So Control up and Control Shift K, use my macro, and 90.8K, right? So it looks prettier that way. You could always, I also have Control Shift L. So all I'm doing in Control Shift L is getting rid of the cents, right? Like I know it's there, Control Shift K, I'm formatting it so I see K instead of thousands. I can switch back and forth between those. That is also a macro that I wrote, right? My cursor's in the way. So there's the dollars straight without the decimals, and then the dollars abbreviated with K or M or whatever, depending on what we're talking about. So that's how to calculate things for, well, personal finance, finance, or engineering economics.